Hey, my ABC family. Oh, I missed you so much. It's been a long time since we've been able to do training together, and I can't wait to be there in person. For those of you I have not yet met, my name is Amber Lappin. I get to do the training here from time to time. I started teaching at ABC in 1992, so a long time ago, and I am very excited to talk to you about a really important topic, which is communication with parents. So let's not waste any time. Let's jump right on in. I'm going to share my screen with you and we will get started. All right, communication with families. The first thing that I want to start with is to remind you that the key to communication anytime is grace and compassion, but especially during a pandemic. It's been a long time since we've been able to communicate with parents. The parents are going to be unsure on how to do it. You're going to feel a little unsure. Things aren't going to go perfectly every time, and it's going to take us a little while to get used to being able to have face-to-face conversations. So the first thing that I just want to say is just remember to have grace and compassion. We'll talk about this as we go through, but just the definition that I like is from one of my favorite writers, Bob Goff. He says he likes to assume the least creepy explanation for why somebody's doing something. So if somebody's being weird, instead of assuming they don't like you or they're cranky or they're not a good parent, but if they're being weird to you, maybe they had a really rough day, or maybe they are just got some weird news, or maybe they're having, maybe they have a headache. Just going with something that doesn't make them a creep, the least creepy explanation for why they're doing something. And that helps me to have just more compassion for people when they're being maybe a little bit rude or a little short with me, instead of assuming, oh, they don't like me. Maybe they're just in a huge hurry or they're running late. And having that grace and compassion for parents is going to help them have that grace and compassion for you, which we're all going to need, right? Okay, so the first thing we want to look at is building relationships. We want to make sure that before we have any delusions of grandeur, before we ever think, oh, for sure, this is how my communication needs to go, we need to understand that we have to build the relationships first. And because you've been away from your parents for so long, there's a lot of ground to make up. There's some things that you can do to build those relationships, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. The first thing is that greetings and salutations matter. So greetings, hello, and salutations, goodbye. Both of those things are important for us to pay attention to. How we make that impression on parents makes a big deal. And there's a couple of different things that communicate to parents. The first one is the way that we, the words that come out of our mouths. The second is our body language. And then the third would be our the atmosphere that's happening around us. So let's just talk about the words and body language. The first things first, stop, smile, say something. If you're wearing a mask, it's gonna take a little bit of extra work to communicate that you're smiling. But I think that after a year of wearing masks, we're being able to tell, right? So the first things first, when somebody comes to your room, you stop what you're doing just for a minute, even if you're in the middle of like circle time or something, you make sure that you check your face, meaning you're not looking like they're bothering you, you're not looking exasperated. If they're late, you're not looking annoyed. If they are, if they're there at an inconvenient time, none of that matters right now. We're communicating with grace and with compassion. And so we're going to first stop what we're doing, look over, and say something. Smile, wave, and then say something. And by something, just, hi, I'm so glad to see you, or hey, Jimmy's over here, but just some sort of upbeat something to say. Now, let's say you're in the middle of rocking a baby. You can still say, hi, I'm happy to see you. She's over there. Or you can, if you're rubbing backs, you can be like, hi, I'm glad to see you. The other thing that you can do is if you're in the middle of maybe reading a story and you have your book up and you're book. You have your book up and you are reading to the kids, and a parent comes in. You can just for a minute say just 1 minute to the kids and say, hi, I'm happy to see you. We had such a great day. But you're going to say something, and the first words out of your mouth need to be positive. Even if it was a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day, you are still going to start with something positive. We want our parents looking forward to seeing you and being in a team with you. And though it's been a distance team, we really want to focus on getting back into a really good, solid communication pattern where we are on a team together and we're looking forward to seeing each other. And one of the best ways to do that is just by your first initial point of contact. Stop what you're doing. Smile, or at least wave and look cheerful from here on up, and then say something positive. Hi, have a good night. Can't wait till tomorrow. Or he says you're going to see grandma. Tell us all about it. Something. Stop, smile, say something. And it seems so basic, but it's easy, especially those of us like myself who can get very focused with something I'm doing and being like, hi, good to see you. That does not work for parents, especially the ones who have been missing you so much. I could be, tying a shoe and be like, hi, yeah, Ethan's over there, and then just let them go. But I'm going to stop, take the second so they can see me. Hi. I've had in the past, and this is many years ago, I've had parents say, I just took my child and they didn't even see me take them. And the teacher, I'll ask the teacher and they'll say, yeah, I totally saw them. I was busy over here in the housekeeping center. We were having a tea party. They just didn't see me. That's not okay. They need to be able to see you and see that you are involved and aware of what's going on. And so you should always be in a position where you can see the other parts of the room, and just make sure if the parents haven't seen you yet, just kind of shout out a little bit. Hi, I'm over here. Yes, I'm watching. I'm paying attention. Your child isn't being lost. Don't say that last part, but that's what we're communicating. Our body language and our facial expressions, even the little bits that we can show, and our voices mean something. Also, what's happening in your classroom really does communicate something as well. That's why it's important in the morning time that you have centers open, and at the end of the day, centers are open. And I know that it becomes a bad habit where people go, housekeeping's closed at the end of the day. Maybe for the last half hour, I understand, but housekeeping and your centers need to be open, and children need to be engaged in them in the beginning and in the end of class time, so that the parents can see that their children are in a nice, safe place. If you're yelling, get out of housekeeping, it's closed, are you guys making a mess in housekeeping? When a parent comes in, that communicates something completely different than what you want to communicate with them. Have centers open, or have them really engaged in something super fun. I mean, if you have a really cool Play-Doh recipe that you're trying for the first time, and you plan to bring it out when the parents are first coming, all the children are going to want to come to it and surround themselves and see what's going on. That brings me to another point, and that is with sometimes separation can be really hard, and I imagine it's going to be extra weird right now while you're transitioning from not being able to see parents and then having them separate at the door. It's going to be new, and so there's probably going to be a lot more clinging. One thing that works really well for me when parents are having a hard time saying goodbye, because they can't stay for a very long time right now, so what we want to say is we're going to let's pick something that you're going to do. Ask the child if they're not down for communicating. Say, do you think that he'd like a book or Play-Doh? Give them two choices, not what do you think they'd like to do. Do you think they'd like to read a book or sit and play with Play-Doh? And then the parent will say, oh, I think that they'd like the Play-Doh. Great. Okay, I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. You go. I'll pick her up and I will take her over to the Play-Doh, and I will call you if she doesn't calm down. Giving them that assurance that everything's going to be fine. That is one of those things that the parents need to know. Not that you're annoyed, not that you're angry. You don't need to be extra firm or extra soft. Just exactly the way that you are. Hey, we're going to go over here. We're going to do this fun thing. It's going to be fine. I promise I will call if it's not okay. You can call and check in later and I'll let you know. Those are the types of things that you can say. Just make sure that you are just, again, communicating with compassion and with grace, meaning that you are being forgiving if they're being a little clingy. Parents themselves, one thing that parents sometimes will do is like, don't cry, don't be afraid, you will be all right. And so it communicates to the child that they should cry and be afraid and that they're not all right. And so that's why I try to say, oh my goodness, this is something fun we're going to do. And what thing would you like to choose, this thing or this thing? And make sure that that's a nice, smooth transition. Okay. Also, there's other ways to have positive interaction that is not just with voice, because you're not going to have as much time to sit and chit chat at the door as the parents would like, even if it's not a pandemic. There's never enough time. So there's a few things that you can do. The first thing I want to just talk to you about is the importance of whiteboards. And I know that it's easy to get jaded on your whiteboards, like it's just one more thing to do and you're probably out of practice with it. But the whiteboards can be a great communication tool when you don't have a lot of time to talk, especially if they come while you're reading, or if another teacher's there when they pick up. Be sure that when you're writing on your whiteboard, if spelling is not your superpower, that you have somebody check it before you put it up, because it looks really bad if it looks like you can't communicate effectively if they're not able to read what's going on there. Some things that I do, for example, is I like to put a little doodle or a little, draw a little something on there. If that's not your jam, then don't even worry about it. But do choose the person in your classroom that has maybe the neatest handwriting. And then if that's you, fantastic. If not, then just be careful. If it's neither of you, just be careful. And then you're just going to write something on there right before pickup time. And you know what, honestly, I like to do it twice. I like a morning one and an afternoon one. It's up to you, I think. Your managers may tell you you have to do it in the afternoon, but I like to do both. And I like that morning one that you can just write, good morning, maybe good morning. Today we will, I don't know, have a new Play-Doh recipe. Oh, now you're not gonna be able to see it, huh? So I'm writing on my whiteboard, as you know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm making sure that I'm saying something exciting. I'm using exclamation points and happy faces and hearts, just making sure that we are spelling things correctly and writing in a cohesive way, not just scribbling something on there. And at the end of the day, you want to write something. I like to write something that has something that we did and then incorporate it with something that they can ask their child. Ask your child, like if you, on here I just put, today we read Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. Ask your child what letter said wee, and make sure that you really, talked about that in class. If you said A told B and B told C, I meet you at the top of the coconut tree. Wee, said D to E, F, G. I'll meet you at the top of the coconut tree. I and J and tag along K, all on their way up the coconut tree. However that may go. You want to make sure that you're including a question that they could answer. So make sure you're saying, we said D. Okay, who said we? And that they'll be able to answer it. But it's going to give their parents something to ask their children about and discuss. Maybe say, today we fed our fish. Ask your child what the fish's name is, or today we tested apples. Ask your child what their favorite color apple was. Those are the kinds of things that you want to be sure to include on a whiteboard. If you want to remind them to get something or bring something, remember it's getting cold or it's starting to get warm, make sure you're dressing in short sleeves with a sweater. That's fine, but try not to do that all the time. It shouldn't just be negative, or not negative, it's not really negative. It shouldn't all be business though. Have it, alternate with some pleasurable, exciting things so that parents can see that what you're doing in class is fun, and their children on their way home are always going to say, what did you do today? And they're going to say nothing. And their parents are going to say, hey, what about Chick Chicka Boom Boom? What letter said we? Other things that you can do if you have to put up maybe, you know, hey, it's like when it's water time again, we're going to go swimming tomorrow, bring your swimsuits. Then what you would do that day is say, hey, there's an important note on the whiteboard. Also, tell your mom what, how tall the tower you built was today, something positive. You can also leave a note, especially if it's a parent you don't get to see very often. Maybe they drop off before you get there or pick up after, or however it's going. Writing a really positive note can go a long way. And it shouldn't, that way it shouldn't only be about negative things or things that they need. One thing that I noticed, one of my friends posted, she has a little baby in a child care center, and her teachers write her kind notes like, hey, I noticed today that she's really good at choosing what she wants. This is going to mean that she's going to be an independent thinker. We love having her in our class. Those kinds of notes go a long way, and they're important to parents in building that relationship. And then they're not dreading every time they get a note like, oh no, it's going to be something bad. Having some sort of positive interaction with the parents. And then phone calls are always the other way that you can have positive interaction, not in the classroom, if a parent wants to talk to you at length. In fact, if a parent says, hey, I need to talk to you about something, you can say, hey, great. And then pick up a pen and say, when would be a good time for me to call you? That way they can see that you mean it seriously, not just, oh, I'll call you. But when would be a good time for me to call you tomorrow? Or, you know, I get off at 4 o'clock. Can I call you tomorrow morning before I get started? Or does it need, you know, is it something you need to talk about now, or should I give you a call? That way you are honoring the amount of time that a parent can be back there. You're not taking your attention away from the children. The class doesn't go out of control while you're chatting forever about, you know, whatever the latest drama in a parent's life is. And you're being able to communicate to them that what that communicating with them is a priority. Remember, we are going to make sure that all of our conversations with parents, even though they might, we want to keep them short and sweet, that they don't feel like you're trying to rush them away or that what's going on is not important. So, for example, if I have a parent say, hey, I really wanted to talk to you about something. Okay, so it started 6 days ago. My boyfriend, fiance, well, we broke up. And then you're like, oh no, I don't have time for this conversation. It's easy for you to say, I don't have time for this, I gotta go. But it's much more effective, and that grace and compassion can be, I totally want to talk to you about this, but I've got to make sure that these guys won't last much longer unless I take them outside right now. Can you write down a couple of times for me and give them a paper that I can call you and the best number to call you, and then I will call you as soon as I get a minute. And then make a priority to follow through. It is important that we follow through. Okay. The next thing to talk about is about being a tag team. It is so easy for us to forget how important it is for parents to feel like everybody knows what's going on. And so what I mean by that is this: if a parent comes to pick up a child and says, oh, where did he get this bruise on his head from? And they see there's an ouch report because the teacher did their job, and they're like, oh, well, it says they bunked it on the bike. Was it on the big bike or the small bike? I don't know why that's important. Let's just pretend. And they ask the teacher who's there, and the teacher goes, oh, I don't know, I wasn't here. Okay, sometimes you're not going to be able to know the answer, in which case you can say, let me have Miss Maddie give you a call, no problem. But most of the time it would be great if you knew at least the basics. And so when you are tag teaming, when somebody's taking over for you while you're leaving, or if it's the two of you and one of you is getting ready to go and you're combining your primary care, then make sure that you're making a note. And sometimes that's just as simple as getting your clipboard and going through just really quick. Okay, you have Madison and Andrew and Adele and Ed, and those are the four that are left. Great day, great day, great day. If it's something negative, the other teacher is not going to talk about it. We're going to talk about negative conversations or when there's problems in our next video. But for sure, the other teacher is not going to do it, especially if they've never met the parent. You're going to, if it's something that is major, like, you know, they fell and bumped their head and you've had a conversation with them during the day and the mom's a little upset, then you're going to warn the director when you leave, okay, I'm leaving. Remember, you know, Ed's mom's going to be here at around 4 o'clock. And so you can talk to her about what happened so that you're not leaving, you know, a person that has nothing to do with the conversation, doesn't know what's happening, in charge of that. But, you know, other than that, you could say, you know, like, you know, Addison is wearing different pants today because she sat in a puddle of mud. She's a little upset about it, but we talked about that it's totally fine and that you would be able to wash them. You know, like, communicate those simple little things that seem like nothing, but when the parent comes and says, why does Addison have on different pants? And the other teacher goes, oh, Miss Kiki told me that that she fell in the mud and she was a little upset about it, but it turned out okay. And she's been in a great mood all afternoon. When you're able to have a quick answer like that, it goes so much better. So tag team, anytime you turn children over for the day, if you had them in the morning and then they transition to another group, anything like that, you are making sure you're passing on that information. And especially if a parent has given you a piece of information, you're going to pass that on. So on your clipboard, which you really, through transition times, you really kind of have to have nearby all the time, you're taking notes about what's happening so that you can write, you know, Addison's mom said that, you know, she brought her a new pair of pants today and that Addison keeps wanting to change into them because she loves them. But she would prefer that she only saves them for emergencies because they don't fit. I know that's a lot, but I'm telling you, these stories happen all the time. Don't pretend like they don't. All right, we're going to run out of time, so let me move on. Okay. The next thing is that people need to know that you care before they care what you know. And I think that that's one of those things that gets forgotten in the shuffle. Sometimes we are, you know, we want to present ourselves as the expert, especially those of you, you know, you've known these children for all this time and now the parents are going to come in and try to tell you how to do your job. And you can feel maybe defensive, or maybe you want to just educate them about, you know, what they need to do differently. But they really need to know that you care first. And so learning names, not just their child's names, which is very important, but also learning the parents' names and asking them the first time you use their first name, ask them if it's okay that you use their first name. Most people are like, yes, please. But sometimes people don't like it. So that's always the first thing, is like, oh, I have a note here that says your name is Mark. Is it okay if I call you that, Mark? Yes. Okay, great. Miss Amber, nice to meet you. Oh, you won't be touching hands. Nice to meet you. And making sure that you then in the future go, hey, Mark, I'm glad you're here. Addison is ready for you. And then know their children, know their personalities. And I know that that seems so basic, but when a parent knows that you really get their child, they're much more likely to be able to hear things that are maybe not 100% positive from you. For example, if you say to a child, if you say to a parent, oh my goodness, Ethan loves science. We just talked about bugs today on the playground for about 15 minutes. That tells the parent, you know my child like you know my child. You know that they love bugs, you know that they like, and then you know that they like bugs and that they like to talk about them, but you also took the time to listen. That way later, if I have to say, Andy keeps, you know, ripping off the heads off of the baby dolls, then they at least aren't thinking that you're out to get their child. You're there because you love them and you want to talk to them about something that is important. But first, learn names and really know their children. That's why I always try to say something every single day to a parent, each parent, about their child that's unique if I can. Sometimes I just can't. They've been there too short, or it was just a wonky day and we can't say a lot of positive things. I might only be able to say, hey, we talked about gorilla bears today. See if she can growl for you. Gorilla bears. Gorillas today, or grizzly bears. That's what I was trying to say. I was trying to say grizzly bears. You know, we learned about grizzly bears. See if she can growl for you. But mostly I'm going to try to do that. Plus, you know, she's so creative. Or wow, you should have seen how tall Maddie built her blocks. You should see how fast Kimberly can run. You know who is a good dancer? That Marco. Did he get his moves from you, Mom? You know, those sorts of things where you're communicating. Or, you know, Gina says you're having kittens. How exciting. Those little tiny things actually go a really, really, really long way when parents are trying to form relationships with you. And that's also that you can be in a team position with them. So if you have to say something positive, they believe you. If they have something they need to tell you, they trust you. If you need to talk about something that is a behavior that you want to stop or discourage, they trust you to hear what, you know, they trust you and will hear what you have to say. Because tough conversations are earned. You don't get to just have a tough conversation with a parent that you don't know. It's like a stranger walking up to you and saying, your hair looks really messy today. Well, if you don't know me, then you don't need to be talking about my hair, right? Well, if that's true about your hair, how much more so about your child? It is important that we understand that having a tough conversation, which is what we're going to talk about in the second half of this video, having a tough conversation is earned. It's not just something you get to just have just because you have something negative to talk about. You need to earn it. Now, if there's an emergency, then of course you're going to talk to your director, you're going to come up with a plan, and we're going to talk about more about what to do with those plans in the second half of this workshop when you watch the next video next month. But if it's not something major, if they just didn't sit still at circle time, or they ripped a book, or they didn't come inside when they were supposed to, then we're not talking about that in the beginning of our relationship when we're first getting to know children. How did it go today? It went great. We had a great day. Oh my gosh, she didn't push. You know what? We are not talking about pushing or hitting or biting or anything right now. We are only talking about getting comfortable with our new normal. Everybody does weird stuff when we're getting settled. Just mentioning those sorts of things to children. You don't have to lie, but you're just not going to bring up, oh, and she also said, you know, poo poo face, bye-bye. With that short period of time to talk to parents and the short period of time you're getting to know them, I would say at least 2 solid weeks of getting to know them before you even approach them with one thing. And we'll talk about how to do that in our next workshop. That time went by so quickly. I hope that you will ask any questions that you have to whoever's facilitating this workshop, and they'll get it to me, and I'll be able to include some of those answers next time. I can't wait to see you guys in person. I appreciate you, and good luck. Bye-bye.